Hello, everyone. This is Jeannie White from Social Connections on Passionate World Talk Radio. And today I have a wonderful guest on. Her name is Elizabeth-Leigh. And I met her through a very good friend of mine named Heidi. So this is our really first time of seeing each other. Elizabeth, welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Oh, yes. It's nothing like doing a video, right? It just isn't. It's just terrific. You can't beat it. But I don't want to take more up the time here, but tell us a little bit about you, Elizabeth, and your story of where you're coming from in your journey.
Sure. Thank you again for having me on. So my name is Elizabeth-Leigh Bradley, and by training, I am a marriage and family therapist. And I'm a little bit of a type A marriage and family therapist as well. So I was one of those individuals that was lucky enough to know early in life exactly what I wanted to do. And I sat down almost every 6 months and try to plan out my life, right? And if you've ever heard that saying, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Well, for me, I spent 20 years doing one of the biggest builds up for God to laugh really loudly. And life was going really well for about 20 years. I had progressed and achieved my goals that I set out to become Chief Clinical Officer of a mental health and substance abuse agency. And I was teaching psychology at various New England colleges and universities, and just living and loving life to its fullest. Along the way, though, like many families in America, my family was touched with mental health and substance abuse. And initially, I was co-caregiving with my mom. And my youngest brother is an addict, and we were trying to help facilitate his recovery. And very typical for an addict, he would go in and out of recovery and relapse. And through that journey, my mom developed some depression, and then other family members had developed clinical symptoms with major depression. And they're all in Oklahoma, and I'm here in Connecticut. And so I found myself having to go back as these life experiences progressed more intensively.
Right.
Myself having to do a lot of travel between Connecticut and Oklahoma. And it got to the point where also in here, my husband's mother started to need more caregiving. And so through all of these caregiving experiences, I found that I had to remove myself from the typical 9-to-5 job. So I left where I was as Chief Clinical Officer and just started teaching full time, because that gave me a little bit more flexibility and time. Right. Through this, my mom started to develop age-related medical conditions. And it was in that moment when my mom really started to need a lot more care that I ended up having, my whole world blew up. God decided that it was time that the joke revealed itself, called my life plan.
And then he made his own plans for you.
Yes. He made his own plans for me.
Yeah.
And I got a call in February of 2017 from my mom saying that she needed to have open heart surgery.
Oh.
So as you can imagine, that was a very emotional time for her. And so I decided, it was something I needed to shoulder. And really present a very strong and confident front for her in this time. And my mom and I are very, very close. So that wasn't, it wasn't a second thought for me to play that role for her.
Right. You just automatically did it.
Yeah, I just automatically did. It's like, okay, let's jump into ready mode, right? There's that type A coming back.
No, I know. Just get it. Let's do it. And then we'll move on from it. And we'll make decisions as we go along. So
yeah.
Had you moved already? Had you already moved to Oklahoma already?
No.
No, not yet.
I wasn't there yet. And this was about year 9 into the whole caregiving through family
Mm-hmm.
situations. And so it was second nature just because of the number of years I've been providing some level of care for my family. But I knew having open heart surgery that it wasn't something that I was going to be able to do on a part-time basis. So
Right.
I was teaching at the University of Hartford, and I was very, very fortunate to have a department chair who was very understanding and allowed me to do my in-class instruction and transition them to online class instruction, which
Oh,
was
now that was an excellent,
oh
excellent for
yes.
something like that to happen because everyone's on the internet anyway. So,
Right, right. So I was very fortunate with that, but that meant I spent from February to the beginning of August doing my normal teaching and
mhm.
advising responsibility, but then pre-recording what ended up to be about 60 lectures, developing exams, developing protocols for online office hours, and grading exams, and having student conferences online. So by the time I left in April, Connecticut, to drive to Oklahoma to move in with my mom just before, during, and after for her recovery, I had already spent a good 2.5 months pretty much doing 90-hour weeks, and it was exhausting. So I had started
Well,
the journey pretty exhausted on top of doing 9
right,
years of caregiving.
right. In conjunction with you were still teaching, correct?
Correct.
Right. So in conjunction with that,
Yes.
that's one stress level, and
Yeah.
then another stress level
A-
is your mom. Yeah.
absolutely. But
And you,
even in that
it,
moment, I didn't recognize it.
we never do.
Yeah,
We just go along and we do it.
yeah, you do what you have
You
to do,
just,
right? This is
yeah,
your
you just say,
family.
yeah, it's it. And you make a decision and say, I'll do what I have to do. And that's it. I perfectly understand. I was going to college. I was working and helping with my mother, with my father. Do
Yeah,
I know how I did it? I have no idea how I got through that, but
you
I
just
did.
do it,
You
right?
do.
Yeah,
You do. Yeah.
you just do it. And so I arrived in Oklahoma about 3 or 4 days before my mom's surgery, just in time to do all the pre-op stuff and kind of settle her nerves through all of that and get her
Oh, yeah.
prepared for the surgery. It was a very emotional time for her. Her father died. I actually didn't know him. He died very young from a massive heart attack. And so, with her needing open heart surgery, this was something that scared her a lot. And so, we fortunately got through the surgery and she did really well.
Mm-hmm.
But when we got home, that's when the real work started. I don't know if you
Oh,
known someone who, or you yourself have taken care of someone who went through open heart surgery, but
no, I
that
don't.
lift, push, or pull anything over 10 pounds, which I don't know if you know, but as a reference point, that's a gallon of milk.
Is it really?
Yes, I
Oh my
know.
God. No more than oh my God.
I was like, that doesn't feel like 10 pounds to me, but okay, sure. Which really limits what she's able to do.
Oh, extremely. It's
Yes.
lucky they allow her to get out of a chair.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Well, she couldn't use her arms at all. She needed help getting out of bed. I mean, she really needed help doing every little daily living activity,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and including through the night. So when we got home, I had to help her get out of bed when she needed to go to the bathroom, which
mm-hmm,
meant I wasn't sleeping at night still because she would call me on the cell phone when she needed to get up. And so I was worried that I would sleep through her call.
mm-hmm.
So I was just always on this kind of hyper alert status.
It's almost like when you're a mother,
Mm-hmm.
even though you think you're sleeping, you're still on that alert for
Yes.
hearing the baby cry or something. So,
Yes.
so this is one of the things you're describing is I've heard it so often is that the caregiver just does not get any sleep or any quality sleep.
quality sleep. I would absolutely 100% agree with you. Yes, I
Mm.
was getting none of that. And yet, as you said, you just power through, right? You
Mhm,
go and
mhm.
do what you have to do. And again, it was my mom, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for my mom. So it wasn't something, and she was being a great patient. She did everything the doctors asked her to do. She did
Oh,
everything
okay.
that I asked her to do. She was the epitome of perfect patient, which I know I'm very lucky in that, because sometimes, due to whatever situation the individual is dealing with, sometimes that's not always in their control, and their behavior changes, and there may be some aggression,
Oh,
whether
yes.
it's verbal or physical, and that can add to the stress load of the caregiver. But I was very fortunate in that my mom didn't have that situation, and she was a very good patient. But I noticed, so now I'm 4 months into not sleeping, not properly
Mhm.
nourishing myself, not getting any quality sleep. And I found my patience level starting to deteriorate.
Oh, quickly, I bet. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And as a person who loves to research things, prior to this, I was researching and had all this entire notebook full of how to take care of someone who needed open heart surgery, right? Because I wanted to
Mhm.
be a good caregiver. I wanted to do everything right.
Oh, yes. I wanted to be correct because not only that,
Yeah,
it's your mom, it's your
right.
mother,
Right.
And so, yes, you wanna do the best, but unfortunately, some of us that try to do our best collapse.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, and that's what I have come to learn, is that I did a great job learning how to take care of my mom, but I did a very poor job of learning how to take care of myself.
Mhm.
And I noticed these my patience level really deteriorating, and I would say things that just aren't me. And they weren't mean or anything, but I would just get um I don't know.
You became out of character.
Yeah.
You weren't you.
Yeah, I
It was
wasn't.
almost like there was that twin that was hanging out there, really,
Yeah.
when you try to describe it. It's I do understand in many ways because many of us caregivers have been there, and it's
Yeah.
the only thing I ever say, Elizabeth, is I don't know how the heck I got through it. And I'm sure you've done the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I remember reading different blog posts about make sure and take care of yourself, make sure and ask for help. So
Yeah.
I started to ask for help, and it was met with, well, it's not really a good time to ask for time off from work, or our kids are doing this, or we've got these plans. And so it was just kind of like, all right, I'm in this by myself. So here
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah.
And I'm a big journaler. And so I would journal a lot, and I would write at night, and it just wasn't getting any better. And I knew I was in trouble. My mom had received wonderful recovery reports from the doctors. We're about 4 months, 5, 6 months into her recovery, and she was getting released to do driving and to do more daily activities. And so it
Mhm.
got to the point where I had a leave date. I was coming back to Connecticut, and the night before, my niece, who's a phenomenal dancer, had a recital, and I thought this will be good for us to go to it,
Right.
get out of the house, be amongst people, and do all of that. So we went, and I sat down in my seat in the auditorium, and just without any provocation from anybody, I just started bawling. I just started crying, and I could not control it. I was biting my inner cheeks, trying
You're
to
trying to.
make it stop. I was trying to widen my eyes to create a bigger basin for the tears to go in, and it just
Mhm.
wasn't working. And I got up and found a darkened hallway with a bathroom and just kind of let myself cry. And it really kind of freaked me out, I have to say, because like I said, there wasn't any provocation. No one had said anything to me. And, it wasn't anything other than I realized everybody else has been living their life for the past 6 months, and mine has been on hold. My
Right.
husband was back in Connecticut. My support system was back in Connecticut. My peer-based
Mhm.
support system was back in Connecticut. And I was truly alone and felt like my life had just been put on hold, primarily for this 6-month period. But then thinking about all of what I've given up to the previous years to help take care of people that I loved.
Right.
And I just couldn't stop it. And I was so thankful that I was leaving the next day because I didn't think I'd be able to mask it for my mom. And I didn't want her to feel like this was
Right.
her fault or that she was doing anything wrong. It was just something that I needed to have my own space again. I needed to get back to who I was.
Yeah, because as a caregiver, you really are isolated
Mm-hmm.
in many ways.
Yeah.
But I think because you went to that event and it was a happy event, you sat down and you realized it.
Yeah.
And it just, everything released.
Yes.
So grateful that you released it, though.
Yes, I am too.
Yeah.
I wish it had come a little bit earlier, and I'll tell you why. As I was driving home, I love to sing. I love to sing in the car. I will not ever sing in public. No one wants me to sing in public, but I love singing in the car. And so usually when I'm driving, I just crank up the radio and I just sing to
Yeah.
my heart's content. And I didn't even have the energy to turn on the radio.
Mentally and physically, you were exhausted.
Mentally and physically, I was exhausted. I took 2 days to get home, and each night I stayed at a hotel. I didn't even leave the hotel. I get in my room and I just cry.
Yeah.
And I got home and things weren't better. And it really started to freak me out because I was like, I've had 2 days by myself to really kind of process, cry, and get it out. And yet it's still a struggle for me. I mean, smiling felt like I was lifting 300 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't have any joy in conversation at all with people that I love.
Right.
And one day I was sitting on my front porch, and it was the summertime at this point. I was sitting on my front porch and I said, you know what, I'm just going to look back on my journal entries. And as I was looking back, I was just stunned. I couldn't believe what was in front of my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
On about 20 different pages, I was talking about ending my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't even conscious
Of it when you were
writing.
doing it. You weren't even aware of it.
Yeah, I wasn't even
But
aware of it.
But your subconscious knew it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And thankfully, because of my training and my
Mm-hmm.
skill sets as a therapist, when I was able to consciously become aware of it, I realized this is not good.
No,
I need
it's
to get
not.
some help, and I need to get some help right now.
No.
Yeah, right now.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I did was I sent a text to my husband and I said, I need you to come home, because I knew I needed to say it out loud, right? To
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah.
And I was really scared and I was really nervous because I didn't know how he was going to respond to it. You know, I didn't, suicide and talking about suicide can be a very difficult conversation in general.
Very
But
difficult. I've talked to many women that have been down, they call it the rabbit hole.
yeah, yeah.
And you struggle to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I struggled to even get it out of my mouth, but I knew it was so important. It was one of those just, I just started crying again. And I think it took me a few times before he actually understood
What you were
I
saying.
was saying.
Yes, yes.
But it was so amazing. He immediately grabbed me and just hugged me, the tightest I think he's ever hugged me. And, was like, I'm not letting you go.
Right.
I'm not letting you go right now, and I'm not letting you go ever, right?
Ever. Yes.
And that was the turning point for me, was to be able to be that vulnerable and share that with him and have him respond in a very strong way.
Yes.
with love and compassion and empathy. And that was really the turning block for me. And at that point, I said, okay, I'm going to further my support and my recovery.
Yeah.
And I started Googling support for caregivers. And while there are some amazing resources out there and amazing organizations doing things, I found at least that they were concentrating on educating caregivers on how to care for the care recipient. And while that's super important,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really find, beyond the more traditional brick and mortar therapy or counseling, how I could have been better supported during that time for my own mental health and my own well-being. And so after months of just kind of writing on Post-it notes, I put all over my walls
Yeah.
in my house, ideas and things that I had. I turned to my husband and I said, I'm leaving the university and I'm starting my own business to support caregivers. And my running joke to people is, after I resuscitated him,
First of all, after you got him, what? Was it off the floor?
after that mild,
Oh my God.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, after that initial
get
shock,
the man some oxygen.
yes, yes, I think we have since bought a defibrillator for him. No, he has been super
This
supportive.
is serious. We don't mean to laugh, but
No,
we're being
but you
serious.
gotta have some levity
But
moments.
it is funny when because of all the different stages,
Right.
So after he recovered,
Yes, after he recovered, he has been my number one cheerleader outside of my mom. That was the second person
oh, terrific! That's
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah,
he's really
Can you-
supporting my efforts.
Yeah, I feel for the caregivers in so many ways. The ones that I've spoken to, of the isolation, and really, when you speak about the support, it's just not, doesn't fit
Right. Right.
what the caregivers really need,
Yeah.
because the patient's always going to be taken care of.
Right.
It's the person that's there, but there's a lot of complex things about that. So
Right.
I'd rather not go into it right now because we want to discuss the whole recovery situation. I just think he's such a sweetheart,
Oh,
really. Oh my God,
he's
he's
a
such a
blessing.
sweetheart, your husband, really.
He really is. And
So,
as much as God wanted to laugh at my plans, he provided me with an amazing support system in both my husband and in my mom. So I've
right.
been very blessed in that way. Yes.
So there, and then so now you're starting on another journey, and did you need to go back and get any certification, or did you already have that kind of an ability to start that kind of a service?
Well, as I mentioned, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, and
Yeah.
I
knew that part. I was just wondering if there was anything else special that had to happen. That's all.
Oh, not at that point, because I really wanted to focus on the mental and emotional health of the caregiver. I really want to complement all of the other organizations and resources out there that are task oriented and financial oriented for the caregiver. I wanted to round out those services with the emotional and mental health support. So because that's where I felt like I could have really been supported in my own journey. And what's interesting is I knew I had to tell my mom, because I was starting a second career in this, and she'd be like, why are you doing this? So I told her, and I was so super nervous, and I waited for a long time because I wanted to do it in person.
Right.
And I wanted to make sure that she was so far into her recovery that it wasn't going to, cause a relapse of some sorts. So I sat down with her and I shared with her what my journey had been, and that I had contemplated suicide. And my mom had taken care of not only my family members that I had described before, but she had taken care of both my dad's parents through their end of life and her own mother through her end of life. And when I told her, so she's been a caregiver for better part of 30 years. And when I told her about where I had landed, she said, I've had those same thoughts too.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, oh my gosh, like, how did you get through that, Mom? Like, we usually tell each other everything, and you hadn't shared with me that you had gotten to that place. And she was like, as much as you're an adult now and our relationship is on a new level, I didn't want to saddle that with you. Who wants to tell their child that,
they were contemplating something? Yeah.
Life thought.
Right.
Yeah.
In a life situation. But many
Mm-hmm.
caregivers don't speak about it anyways for the
Right.
fear of repercussion, or people won't
Yes.
understand what they're saying. So along you come, Elizabeth, that does understand in many ways, and that you can be a service to these different individuals.
And that's what I have put all of my energy into in creating
Mm-hmm.
everyday caregivers. I really want to address the needs of that everyday caregiver, who that person who day in and day out finds that strength somehow
To get up.
carry on.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to lighten that load a little bit. I want to provide a community for them, but I also want to provide tools and resources that isn't just another blog that says, make sure and take care of yourself, make sure and ask for help. But I wanted to be a part of the how.
How do you do it?
You do that.
Yeah, because that was my question. How do you do it? Where do you go? Who do you talk to? Because sometimes you can't even talk to your own personal friends about this. So it has to be someone that's prepared to help you with this, that has been trained in this. So
yeah,
what I ask is, we're getting close here. Can you give information how they can contact you, should they ever want to?
Sure, absolutely. So my website is www.everydaycaregivers.com, and I do have a contact page on there. They can certainly email me through that. My personal email is elbradley, BRADLEY, at everydaycaregivers.com. I also invite them to join our Facebook community. We're about 4,500 strong, and they're caregivers across the spectrum, from age-related medical conditions to just life-altering medical diagnoses like cancers or special needs, mental health, substance abuse. We really try to be inclusive of all caregivers and those they're caring for.
Yeah.
So
whenever I talk about caregivers, I'm doing a series right now, but in general, what I'm saying in these conversations I have with these other caregivers could apply to any caregiver.
Yeah.
Basically, it just happens to be I picked this particular niche,
Right.
And coming in January, I'm going to be doing a series for cancer patients. So but everyone is still a caregiver, I would say. Yeah. So I'm sorry you were going to go on. I got carried away.
Oh, no. Thank you for jumping in there. Are you kidding? Absolutely. I can talk about this for days.
Oh my God. It's really such an important subject in so many ways.
Yeah.
Just to let these individuals, and mostly women, that know that they can come someplace and get some sort of substance to help them with their everyday, because some of these women are going through it on a daily basis. They've been doing it for 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. I'm always at a loss for words, Elizabeth. I don't even understand how you're getting up out of bed every day.
I know. Well, and that's what I really feel like this is why I've been put on this earth.
Yeah.
I really do. And that's why it was very easy to say, I'm leaving the university and this is what I'm focused on, because this is just, I just don't know how else to say it other than I really feel like this is my purpose in life.
Oh, it definitely is your purpose, girl. Definitely your purpose.
Yeah.
And God interject. I'm telling you that in the universe, believe it or not.
Absolutely.
It works in strange ways. I wish we had more time, but only because that video, but would you come back?
Oh, I would love to come back. Yes. Thank you so much.
And and we can do it video, we can do it audio.
Okay.
We can do it either way you want. But I think I met you for a reason.
I agree.
I can't tell you right now why, but I know I met you. Heidi introduced us for a reason.
Yes.
And because these women are just absolutely phenomenal,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and for yourself, look at you. And look what happened and where you are now.
It's a miracle.
You're happy.
Yes. I can
You are.
smile again without any weight.
It's good. You're smiling. This is excellent.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
couldn't have done anything better, you know, and
Yeah.
plus the caring from your support system,
Mm-hmm.
your number one fan, your husband.
Yeah.
These are all very important things for people. Very,
Yeah.
very important.
Absolutely. And I always tell my husband and others that if I can help one person not get to that place or get out of that place if they're already there, then that's everything to me.
That's the same thing I say. When people say, well, how many people are listening or who's doing this? I say, you know, really, for me, I'm just concentrating on getting to that. I don't know who that person is, but I'm concentrating on getting to that one person.
Yeah.
And that's my goal, you know.
Yes.
So is there I wish we could go on.
I
It's
know.
so good.
Too, but we'll come back. We'll do it again.
We'll do it again, but we'll continue on.
Yes.
Is there a message you want to leave with these wonderful caregivers that you were speaking to?
I just want you to know that you are not alone and that your needs are important and that you are important. What you're going through is very difficult and you're doing the best that you can. And we're here to help you create a healthier, more balanced caregiving experience. We're thinking of you. We're sending you a lot of love.
Yes.
I would say a bunches of love, but that didn't quite make sense. We're sending you a lot of love. And if I could wrap my arms around you and give you that hug that I know you so desperately need, I would. And I just hope that you are at a place where you can reach out either to myself or to another group that is championing caregiving.
Well, thank you for those words. They're wonderful. And I know the women out there are going to love it and know that there's people for support. I want to thank you again for coming on, Elizabeth. And this is Jeannie White from Social Connections on Passionate World Talk Radio. Elizabeth will be back. So if you have any questions, I'll be doing a blog and you can always let us know. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.